Here's a stat that stopped me when I saw it. Research on business planning has found that owners who write their goals down and build a real plan around them grow 30% more than others. And that is basically the difference between having a goal that you hope happens versus having a goal that you actually build towards. And that is what we're going to talk about today on this episode of Leveraging Operations and Leadership. So, welcome back. I am Tanya D. Harrison, founder of Signal Partners, and the information that I share with you is to help you build the gap between how you run the business and how you show up as a leader, because they go hand in hand. So, when we think about why goals fail in small businesses, it's because the goal lives in their head or on a vision board. And I absolutely have nothing against vision boards. I do them every year. However, they can't just stay there. Yep, it's great to vision it, to see it, but you have to actually have a plan. And what I find is many of the micro businesses that I work with, they have a goal. Sometimes it's not written down. And if it is written down, there's no plan attached to it. And when we don't have a plan, that means that we haven't fully come up with a way that we are going to operationalize it. You got to take that goal, even if you document the plan, it has to be a system behind it that allows you to take that information and now apply it to your day-to-day weekly activities. It needs to be a part of your weekly activities. It needs to be scheduled on the calendar. When we don't do that, that gap is where our goals go to die. Our goals go to die within that gap. So we have to fill that gap. I'm going to be talking about how do you fill that gap, right? And I want you to think about this. The goal is going to tell you where you are going. When you operationalize that goal through a system or a plan, that is going to tell you what you're going to do every Monday to get there. I do my planning Sunday night or Monday morning, whenever you do the planning, but that's what it's going to tell you. And most people do not build this part. And this is why it is imperative that we have this conversation and you start doing it. Before I get into that, I want to talk about some of the things that you want to think about when you are actually coming up with your goal. I recommend that you set your goals for the year and then you break them down by quarter and you have a focus. That's what I recommend. There's different recommendations out there. You have to do what works for you. What I have seen work is the annual planning. But before we get there, I want you to be real with yourself, to get crystal clear with yourself before you start setting these big goals. And I want you to think about what your capacity is. What resources do you have available before you start planning? So many times we plan these big extravagant goals, and I'm not saying that they shouldn't stretch you and make you reach, but what I'm saying is you have to think about, if I'm working a full-time job and I work my business part-time, how many hours do I have to dedicate to my business? How many hours do I have to give to my business in totality? And now, how many hours am I going to have to actually execute on these goals? And that's something that I don't think we think enough of. Even if I'm working my business full time, what does that look like? How many hours am I saying that I'm working? How many hours am I saying that I'm going to have towards executing on some of these goals? Because all of the other stuff still has to get done. So while I'm working on these goals, I still got to be servicing my clients. I still got to be doing all of the things that need to be done within the business. So we have to be realistic about it. And if you have a team, it's not just you. You have additional resources, but what are they working on? What are their time constraints? How much time do they have to set aside to work on these things? Even though in the end, a lot of times it's going to help move the business forward. But if you don't have time to work on them, you're not going to see those benefits. So I want you to be realistic as possible, still stretching yourself, which is why in many cases I recommend having a base goal and a stretch goal. And a stretch goal is like the best case scenario, and the base goal is this is the mere bottom that I'm going to accept as a goal. So it's not lackadaisical, like, oh, if I don't do nothing. No, that's not what it is. It is bare minimum. This is what I need to make happen. So think about that before you even get to doing your goal. Think about the capacity. Think about the resources that you have. Think about what their capacity looks like, and consider all of the things. So that is the capacity part of it that I really want to talk about, because knowing your current capacity and being able to identify what has to shift to create room, that helps you protect the goal. That helps you to accomplish the goal. Because if I'm only able to work 30 hours a week in my business, and I want to allocate 5-10 hours a week towards the goals, what needs to happen in order for me to make that happen? And can I make that happen? So think through all of these things. Now, when you're thinking about your annual goal, before you pick a goal, I want you to think about this. It needs to be time bound. And I say that because a deadline has to be attached. And just because it's an annual goal doesn't mean that it needs to take you all year. Just because it's an annual goal does not mean that it needs to take you all year. We need to get that in our head, because there may be some things that I'm setting as an annual goal, but I need to get it done by the end of Q1 or the end of Q2, because I have some other things that are contingent upon making this happen. The second thing is that it needs to be measurable. I need to be able to measure it. I need to be able to look back and say, did I hit it? Did I not hit it? Am I on track? Measurable can be in terms of numbers or milestones, but it has to be measurable. And then the other thing is, it needs to be something that moves the business forward. Not just busy work, not just because somebody told you you need to set a goal of XYZ. Look at your business and think about, is this a goal that is going to move my business forward in the direction that I want it to go in? Now we are ready to start talking about the actual goal. And I feel that this is a great time for me to talk about this, because we are mid-year, and a lot of times this is the times where we're like, we need a reset because we want to end the year strong. And there is still time to end the year strong. Okay. When I am working with business owners, I recommend goal setting in 3 categories, and there are several categories that you could do. But I recommend these 3 because they're usually the ones that are going to propel you in the direction of your goal, your vision, and your vision can be a little bit more long-term than a year. The first one is financial. And when you think about financial, think in terms of sales. It could be profit, things like that. So that's the financial. A goal could be to grow sales by a specific amount or hit a specific project margin. The second category is operational. And I think every year we should have an operational goal, because as your business grows, you want to become as efficient as possible. So always having an operational goal, I believe, is key. And it could be because my background is operations, whatever, but definitely having one. So whether that means automating key portions of the business, whatever that looks like, I want you to think about what could be a good operational goal. And then the third goal is leadership. How do I continue to grow as a leader in my business? And I'm talking about, do I need to go back and get certified? Do I need to take courses to learn certain things? Like maybe I've never led a team before. How do I go back and get some additional information, take a course, take a program to prepare me to lead a team? This could be systems that need to be delegated. I may need to identify systems that need to be delegated to someone. A lot of times we hold on to things that we don't need to be holding on to. So the goal may be to identify 3 systems, 3 processes that I could delegate. These three areas are well where real forward movement happens, which is why it's worth building a goal around. All right, so let's talk about the full cascade and how we operationalize this. So I'm going to tell you what the high level steps are, and then we're going to take a goal and break it down. You're going to have your annual goal. So your vision always sits at the top. That's a little bit more long term. But we're going to have our annual goal. And then underneath that, we're going to have a quarterly focus. Here's what I'm going to focus on this quarter. And then within the quarterly focus, we're going to have projects. What are the projects that I need to do in order to make sure that I'm moving the annual goal forward? And then under that, we're going to have weekly tasks where now we're going to break it down and schedule it on our calendar. And this is where the operationalizing the goals happens. This is where the magic happens. It's in the details. I have to get to that level of detail in order to make sure that I am staying on track with my goal. So let's think about it. Let's use an example. Say, for instance, I have an operational goal, and the annual goal is to automate the client journey from onboarding through offboarding. So the onboarding, the delivery, as much as possible of the delivery, and the offboarding. All of that needs to be automated. As many components, as many steps of that process that I can automate and want to automate, because we still have to have that human connection part, right? So as much of it that I want to automate and can automate needs to be done. That is my annual goal. It is measurable because I can break it down and say I want to automate the client onboarding by Q1. And then the other part needs to be done by Q2. I can break it down however, or I can do it all in one quarter, which is probably what I would do. I would just take it and do it all in one quarter. But if we wanted to break it down, we could break it down. So I know that it is measurable. It is time bound because I could say I want this to be done by the end of Q2 because I have some other things that are contingent on it. I may be wanting to hire somebody, so I want to automate as much as possible. So when I hire somebody, now they can own it and they can walk into something that's already done and they can next level it depending on what their skill set is. And then the other thing is, it's definitely something that's going to move my business forward. It's going to create more time for me. It is probably going to increase or improve the client experience. So that is a win, and I'm moving forward. That's my annual goal. My quarterly focus, now when I'm breaking this down, my annual goal is to automate the client journey from onboarding through to offboarding. My quarterly focus, we could start with Q3. In Q3, I'm going to automate the client onboarding process. So that's the first phase of it. I'm going to make sure that I get that done. This is the first phase of the journey, so I'm going to start there. That's my quarterly focus. My projects could be document the onboarding process, because before I talk about automating anything, I need to document what it is that I'm doing. So one project could be to document the onboarding process. The second project could be to identify automation points and the tools that I need in order to automate it. The third project could be to train on the tools and set them up. That's 3 projects, and I recommend having 1 to 3 projects per quarterly focus. You don't want to have too many because, again, all the other work still needs to get done. I'm still servicing clients while I'm doing this. I'm still marketing while I'm doing this. So, so it's not like business stops because I have a goal. I have to be able to carve out time to work on this goal. So that is how you are now implementing it. Then the last step is I got my projects. I'm going to document the current onboarding process. My second project is to identify automation points and tools. My third project is to set up automation, to train on the tools and set up automation to actually implement it. When it comes to my weekly tasks, I may say I'm going to block out 2 hours on Wednesday and 2 hours on Friday. And this is going to be to document my onboarding process. I'm scheduling it on my calendar from 9 to 11 on Wednesday, from 1 to 3 on Friday. I'm actually going into my calendar and I'm scheduling it, and then I'm performing it. Then I'm going to move, once I complete project 1, I'm going to move to project 2, and here's what I'm going to do. And this is how you take your goal from this ambiguous thing that's up here in the sky to making it detailed and operationalizing it. And this is how you fill that gap, so that now you are doing the things that you said that you wanted to accomplish the year. A goal does not, I want to repeat this, a goal does not need the full 12 months just because it's an annual goal. So time bound means there is a real deadline, doesn't have to be a full year. The reason why I feel that this is worth repeating, because sometimes I feel like because we've given ourselves a year, we take a year. In business, one of the things that I have learned is that we have to be swift. You got to move. Sitting on something for 5 months or even 5 weeks is not something that you want to do. You got to learn to move. And I always think about Apple. I have Apple products. I'm recording this on an Apple computer. I have phones. My phones are Apple. My laptop is Apple. And they don't wait to put out the perfect version. They move. And they send out the updates. We get them. We get them all the time. There's been an update to your operating system. You choose to update it or not, right? Many times these updates are fixing bugs. It's not like all of these new enhancements. You got to go to another version, but it's fixing some of the things. And sometimes we wait entirely too long looking for perfect. And progress over perfection is going to beat every time. And I have learned that. So just because you put something as an annual or a yearly goal does not mean that you need to take a year to do it. So for this onboarding, where I say that I want to, this goal, if I said that I want to automate it, I can do that in a quarter. I can do that in a quarter. And depending on how much time you have to allocate towards it, it may not take you a quarter. If you're part-time in your business, it may take you the whole quarter. But if you're full-time in your business, you may be able to get it done in a month. And if you can get it done in a month, get it done in a month. And here's the thing with any goal, many times we're tweaking along the way. We're going back and so say for instance this, we're specifically when we're talking about automating something, it's not a one and done. I have automation in my business right now. I still have a goal about developing additional efficiency. That I still have an operational goal. So I'm going back and I'm finding other things that I can automate. One of the things that I said that I was going to do from an operational perspective, which I've done, I'm going to identify 5 high value tasks that are being performed in my business, whether it's me or the virtual assistant. And then I am going to pick 3 to automate. And that's what I did. So now I have freed up her time and my time, because they were tasks that both of us were working on separate things, to do other things in the business. So for instance, one of them was doing research. I may have mentioned this in another episode. One of them was doing research for different opportunities. I had the criteria because I gave it to her. I know what I'm looking for. I gave her the criteria. So I had it. I knew what it was that I was looking for. I put that in AI and have it scheduled so I get the output every week. I don't care how great your business is, how long you've been in business, there's always going to be an opportunity to get better. And I want you to take that opportunity to get better. All right. So that was my soapbox. That was my sidebar. But my point is that we need to take these goals and we need to operationalize it. So I'm going to go from annual to quarterly focus to identifying projects, putting it on the calendar weekly, scheduling it weekly. And then the last part is to build a simple review rhythm. every week you want to do check-ins against the plan, not just the end of the quarter, not just the end of the month, but every week. And then what I want to do is that if I see that something's not going as planned, I can make small corrections early instead of having this big failure at the end of the quarter because I didn't do anything. If I'm checking in weekly, I'm checking in and I'm able to see, am I on target for accomplishing whatever it is that I said that I want to accomplish. And for those of you that were in the capacity shift workshop, remember we talked about at the end of the week that you're doing this, basically this true up. It's a 15-minute reflection where I'm going back and I'm looking and I'm seeing how I did over the course of the week. If you are tracking using metrics, you're already doing something on a weekly basis. You're just going to include this as a part of that. Okay? So the mindset shift that needs to happen is operationalizing a goal is a leadership act. This is not an admin task. It is you deciding your goals deserve a system, not just good intentions. Good intentions are great, but you have decided that your goals deserve a system, and you've decided that you deserve to hit your goals. I hope that this has helped you, and I always like to leave you with an action step. So the action step for you is to take one goal that you have written down but haven't moved on it or haven't made as much progress as you would like to make, and I want you to walk through operationalizing it. I mean, going through exactly what we said, from the quarterly focus to listing out the projects, the blocking time on your calendar, and to doing the reflection period, the reflection time. So if this has actually spoke to you in any way, I hope that you will hit subscribe so that you'll be here next week when I share the next video, and then also share it with someone who needs to. Another action step that you could take is take the leadership shift assessment. And this is a free assessment that I have. It takes about 2 to 3 minutes. Two things that it does. Number one, it brings awareness because you're going to see the questions that are being asked, and it's going to help you to kind of think about some of the things that you probably should be doing in your business if you're not doing it. The second thing it's going to do is going to help you identify where you are on this journey, and it's going to give you some relevant next steps based off where you are. Thank you again for listening, and I will see you in the next episode. Take care.